This video will show you how to replace the coolant temp sensor on a Chrysler 300 with a 5.7 liter engine. This will be located under your engine cover along the front center of your engine. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. Since this is a coolant related part, we want to make sure the cooling system is cool to the touch first. So we have the hood up and we're over at our coolant reservoir area. We want to confirm it's cool to the touch. We are going to carefully open our coolant cap along this area, assuming it is cool. Press down, turn counterclockwise, lift up and away from your face, releasing any pressure. Just a quick inspection of that cap and we're going to start it right back on there. Now we're making our way over towards the upper engine cover. We can remove that simply by lifting straight up on it. Just has a couple tabs. We should be able to slide that out of place. Now that we have that cover out of position, we can see our throttle body, and if you were to look down inside this area, we have a wiring harness leading to our coolant temp sensor. Let's start disconnecting our coolant temp sensor electrical connector. It has a locking tab towards the intake here on the inboard side. Just go ahead and carefully press in on that locking tab and we'll pull this out of place. If you have a hard time doing it by hand, you could carefully use some pliers. A thorough inspection of that electrical connector to confirm there's no corrosion. Now we can focus on the coolant temp sensor itself. A quick note about this is during the removal process, coolant will make its way out of this area. We need to make sure we have a collection receptacle underneath the vehicle so you can collect and recycle all fluid properly. Let's try to remove and replace this as quick as possible so we only lose the least amount of coolant as possible. Now to remove the sensor itself, you're going to be using a 19mm. Yes, the sensor's out in the open, but you're going to find that there's minimal space to be able to get a socket and extension in here. You may have to use a swivel of some sort as well. There it is, friend. Now I did apply a small plug to my port there, so I'm just going to go ahead and clean up around that area. We want to make sure we're not using any type of detergents which might make its way into the engine cooling system. We don't want to cause any damage to anything. Now I can remove that plug. We'll just inspect the threaded port, and then we can continue on with the installation of our coolant temp sensor. Those threads look good. Let's go ahead and get this sensor in. We're starting it in by hand. Now that we have that sensor started in, to be able to tighten this without causing any damage, we want to try to use an open-ended wrench. Unless, of course, you have a socket that can make its way on there, you just want to be extremely careful not to cause any damage. It's common to break this area. So with that said, to help avoid that, we can easily reduce this risk by removing the air intake hose. You're going to find you have an 8mm headed clamp on either side. We'll loosen that clamp just enough that we can slide the hose out of place. Once you do have it dislodged, you're going to want to give it a close inspection. Make sure it's still soft and pliable. It's not torn, worn, or damaged. We'll continue on to the far side here over at the throttle body. We do have an air temp sensor, but we don't have to do anything with that. We're just going to loosen the clamp. We'll slide this and put it over towards the side, putting no pressure on our wiring harness. There's that air temp sensor. Now we can get our wrench in this area fairly easily. This is going to take a minute or two. We'll take our time. We don't want to cause any damage. Now for these sensors, the torque is 20 foot-pounds. Typically, if you're using a wrench, you just want to make sure it's snug. Right there's where it feels as though it wants to stop. As you can tell, there is still some threads showing on the outside area here. Now it's time for the electrical connector. Line up the locking tab area and slide it in. Pressing it all the way in there. We'll double check to make sure that's secured in place. Continue on with your air inlet tube, assuming you had removed it. As far as this inlet tube, we're bringing this over towards the throttle body. We're not tightening the clamp yet. Let's make our way over towards the air filter housing. We'll get this aligned as well. We're pressing it in until it's completely bottomed out here. We'll tighten the clamp, make our way to the far side, tighten that clamp as well. Double check to make sure it's secured in both areas. Before we go any further, let's make sure we clean the area so we can double check for leaks in the end. Now, since we did lose a little bit of coolant throughout this process, of course we need to make sure that we top off our coolant. We already know that the cooling system's cooled to the touch. We can take hold of that cap. We're turning it counterclockwise, as you know. We'll just go ahead and lift that up and off of there. Now we're going to top off the cooling system. There could be air trapped inside of the engine. If you have a specialty tool that can remove that air, like I have, you're going to use that. Otherwise, you want to carefully run the vehicle in a well-ventilated area. That's going to help circulate the coolant and the air throughout the entire system. The air will make its way up to this area, and coolant will make its way in. Top off the coolant up to the maximum line, and then close the cap. Now I have my tool in place here. I'm going to continue on with filling my system. Now, typically when using a tool like this, you want to see the gauge go all the way into the green, assuming you're filling the entire cooling system. Now, since I only lost a little bit of coolant, there really isn't too much area for vacuum pressure. That's the maximum amount I can get. A good thing about this is we can tell if we have a coolant leak prior to installing any more coolant. If the needle on the valve drops at all, you more than likely have a leak somewhere. I can see my maximum line over on the side here. This is all the air making its way out of the system, which is exactly what I want. Now I'm going to start getting it down to the proper area. There's our maximum line all the way down there. A little more coolant. All right. As far as using this tool, that's complete. Now, as you can tell, my coolant level is at the maximum line. If you're using a basic funnel system along the top here, typically it's going to bring the coolant level all the way up a little bit too far, in which case you're going to have to drain some. You don't want to be past the maximum line, especially if the cooling system is cold. Fluid expands when it warms up. Now we can reinstall our cap. After double checking for leaks, it's time to install that engine cover. For this, we're aligning it with all 4 of its mounting pins. Press it down into the fully locked position and lift along each corner. You should find that it's properly secured. We finished our installation, we've cleaned our mess, and we've checked for leaks. Go ahead and close the hood and take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.